Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadi alladhina astafa ma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa dharu dhahira al-ithmi wa batina. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us commandments and prohibitions mentioned in the Quran and as mentioned by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It is more difficult to give up sins rather than just to do good deeds. As mentioned in narration Tirmidhi, ijtanibu maharim Allah takun a'bad an-nas. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned that abstain from the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, abstain from sins, then you will be amongst the most, you will be the most worshipful servant. Because it's difficult to abstain from the prohibitions compared to just doing good deeds. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used sins the word sin has been described in many different words in the Quran. But one specific word which is used commonly you'll find is dhambun. Dhambun is also the root of it itself. Dhanab refers to a tail. Because when a person commits a sin, the effects of that sin linger on with the person throughout the rest of his life. And the effects of that will become most apparent on the Day of Judgment, because the person will be punished for those sins. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not, sins themselves are related to different limbs. In different ahadith and in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the different sins which are attached to each limb. For us, simply when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the command to leave out sins, it doesn't refer to just, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't leave it ambiguous. But He specified which sins are attached with each limb. Each person has a different addiction. Each one of us has a different trial and a test in giving up a certain sin. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, given us the ability and mentioned the different wa'ids and has mentioned the different ways to give up different sins. But going into them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us our body, and the ulama have mentioned, if you look into our body itself, sins are attached with mainly 7 limbs. And that's why on the Day of Judgment, these 7 limbs will testify against us. الْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seal the mouths, the hands and the feet will testify. And if you look in this ayah itself in Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seal the mouths. So the tongue is not going to be speaking. What's going to happen is وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ. The hands are going to testify. What is this in Arabic? You call this a mudda'i, a person that is actually making a claim. So the hands are making the claim. Now if you make a claim, what do you need? You need proof and evidence. وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ. So the legs are going to be testify against them. So it's not simply that the limbs are talking, but the other limbs will act as witnesses for what the person did. And you obviously have the earth and the different, things which we didn't imagine would testify against us on the Day of Judgment. And these limbs speaking, this is nothing far-fetched. One of the great scholars that passed away, Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahimahullah, mentioned that in this time, who's a walking library, that in this time that we live in, it is more easy to understand these ayat because of the examples that we see. At the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the mushrikun, they denied how in the world did Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam travel to Masjid al-Aqsa all the way to the 7th heaven. But now if you look at it, it's a flight to Masjid al-Aqsa from here is probably, maybe 15 hours or something. It's very easy. But before, that was far-fetched. Just because something is far-fetched to understand does not mean that it's impossible. And you look, for example, in this day and age, maybe 3 or 4 decades ago, you had tape recorders. You could record your voice. An object which is not living, which is considered as dead, doesn't have any ruh, any soul to it, but it can record your voice, and it can replay that. And then fast forward, after maybe 2-3 decades ago, you have video cameras that can replay everything, and now it's just improving that the quality of it is as if you're just watching yourself, clearly. The resolution is completely clear. So when we're able to see this in this dunya now, this is just a reflection of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us on the Day of Judgment and what will happen. So the limbs will testify against us. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah has mentioned that in Surah Hijr, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions لِكُلِّ بَابٍ مِّنْهُمْ جُزْءٌ مَقْسُومٌ, that لَهَا سَبْعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ لِكُلِّ بَابٍ مِّنْهُمْ جُزْءٌ مَقْسُومٌ, that Jahannam has 7 gates, or 7 layers, 7 tabaqat. He mentioned that one of the hikmahs and one of the wisdoms behind this is linked with each sin of a human being, meaning each limb which the sins are attached with. If you go back to a human body, the limbs in which a person commits sins with, either they're attached with the eyes, that's 1, or the ears, that's 2, or the tongue, that's 3, or with the stomach, that's 4, or with the private parts, that's 5, with the hands, that's 6, and with the feet, that's 7. Those are 7 limbs in which a person commits sins with. Now, each one of them, we don't have time to obviously elaborate each one of the sins affiliated with each limb and the cures to that. But going over each one, each individual, we have to analyze ourselves, which limb do we commit sins with the most? In this day and age, many are afflicted with the sins of the eyes. Some, they don't have that issue, but they talk excessively. And not only talking excessively, but talking in things which are related to sins. Or people have a habit of always going to impermissible places. Those are all affiliated with our limbs. When it comes with our eyes, you can draw an entire chart with this, which each limb, how many sins are attached with each limb. That's why it's very difficult to abstain from all sins compared to just doing the good deeds. When it comes with a person's eyes, it's not just a matter about looking at, casting lustful glances, be it the opposite gender, and in this day and age, sadly, the same gender. Lustful glances are impermissible, be it the same gender or the opposite gender, unless if it's your wife, or a wife with a husband. But aside from even lustful glances, looking down upon someone with the ainul haqara, with the eye of you're despising someone, looking down upon them, looking at those things by which attract you to the dunya even more. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but in actuality they're addressing us, لَا تَبُنْدَنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ. Don't stretch your eye. What do you mean by stretch? It's mubalagha. It's more eloquent saying, using the word madda rather than just saying nadhara, and to look. But don't stretch your eyes out, longing for what we have given them as far as the dunya. Because if you're always looking at the dunya and comparing yourself to them, you're just going to have more love of the dunya and come inside your heart. And aside from lustful glances and always looking at the dunya, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made our eyes to what? To ponder and reflect upon the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by which you understand the Creator Himself. You don't ponder in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, but you ponder in the creation. That's why in the Quran, it talks about many places to look at the makhluk, look at the creation, look at nature, look at the tree, look at the skies, the ocean, the camel, different animals Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned. All things which a human being can't create. That's what the purpose of the eye is for. To look at those creations. Looking at your parents with love. Looking at your spouses with love. Looking at your children with love. Not to commit sins with the eyes. That's one limb. Second limb, you look at the ears. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, the ears are such, they don't have an automatic close button. If you see something you dislike or see something that you're not supposed to look at, you can close your eyes immediately. But the ears don't have that. So that's why the ears are very important to safeguard. In this day and age where music is so rampant, wherever you go, be it the gas station, be it a local grocery store, it's so rampant. And our ulama have said music was impermissible. Now recently people are coming up with fatwa saying it's permissible. There was a consensus. Look at the previous ulama and all the Salafus Salihin amongst our great Aimma, be it even the four madhahib, that music was impermissible. There's effects which you won't even realize of that. Sometimes you might even just heard a song implicitly. You weren't intentionally trying to hear it. What happens? It gets stuck in your head or gets stuck in your heart. And then you don't even try to memorize the lyrics or the tune of it, but automatically it's there. Al-ghina yunbitu al-nifaqa fil qalbi kama yunbitu al-ma'u zar'a, as it comes in a narration of Qala alayhi salatu. Singing and music, this grows hypocrisy in one's heart, just as how water were to grow crops. So the listening to backbiting also, it's another sin affiliated with the ears. Listening to lies, listening to people curse, all these different things, these are these sins affiliated with the ears. These are necessary to abstain from. And because we don't have an automatic stop button to close our ears, you have to avoid those environments. You have to avoid those environments. These are all funnels at the end which leads to one's heart. The ears, the eyes, the tongue, they lead to one's heart, have an effect upon one's heart. So those are some of the sins affiliated with the ears. When it comes to the tongue is one of the most dangerous limbs. Because the tongue, you won't get tired. You can talk for hours. 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, you won't get tired. For someone watching something impermissible, you strain your eyes, regardless if you're watching a screen. Your eyes get strained. You need a break. But when it comes to the tongue doesn't have a break. That's why ulama have mentioned, if you just look at the creation of our body itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put 2 gates on the mouth. One is the lip and one is the teeth, to cover the tongue, to make sure it doesn't speak. And then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that your tongue, people are going to be thrown headlong into the fire because of what their tongues have. إِلَّا بِحَصَائِدِ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ, because of what their tongues harvested. Meaning the sins which their tongues committed in this dunya, that's going to be a source for people to be thrown headlong into the fire. If you look at the tongue, backbiting, cursing, carrying tales, false rumors, insulting people, cursing. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah in Ihya al-Muddin, he's elaborated over 70 sins affiliated with the tongue. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Qaf that you have angels that are writing and are waiting, raqib. They're just anticipating when will a person say something, be it good or bad. We need to write down. So that's why it's very important to contemplate also before whenever someone speaks and utters anything. This tongue is a limb by which you enter into the fold of Islam, but at the same time you can leave the fold of Islam. This tongue is by which joins unions together, husband and wife together. When he says qabiltu, but at the same time this tongue causes destruction amongst the family when they separate. This tongue can be the source of ruin for your children. When you're cursing your children, you're looking down upon your children, you're yelling at your children. Vice versa also, child yelling at their parents. The tongue is a source of evil. It's very important to guard our tongues. And there's many, again, as I mentioned, we don't have enough time to elaborate all the sins and the cures behind them, but one important thing is just to contemplate before we speak. In this day and age, if you're an introvert or you don't talk a lot, you're looked down upon. But that's not the asl. That's not the main course. And that's not the main basis of how our deen is. Because Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would only speak when it's necessary. The asl is that you speak when it's necessary. Not the asl is that you always speak and you remain quiet every now and then. Should be the opposite. You remain quiet majority of the time, you speak when it's necessary. When there's good and there's some benefit for yourself or for others. When it comes to the sins of the hands. Person striking someone. Right? In this day, hitting your children. Or vice versa, it happens now. Children hitting their parents. Stealing something from someone. Taking wrong money. You cheat someone. Those of us here that are merchants, selling items, or selling cars, especially car business. Don't cheat and dupe people. When you're selling an item, we have the fiqh in buyur, how you're supposed to explain all the uyub, all the faults of the defects of the item. If not, muhiqat barakatu bay'ihima. If you don't, then the barakah, as it comes in hadith, or the barakah of the bay is effaced. For you, the buyer and the mushtari, the seller and the buyer. Jazakullahu Khairun. And you're taking that money is haram for you to consume. Because you're cheating and duping people. That's a sin. That's part of the sins which the hands commit. Talk about the sins of the feet or the legs. Those sins that if we're walking to impermissible places, it's not rare. It's actually quite common. Muslims going to the clubs, these impermissible places. Your feet will testify on the day of judgment. Sins related to the stomach, eating impermissible foods, eating haram food, consuming riba, usury, interest, which is so common in this day and age. No matter how much you try to avoid it, somehow you still get caught up in it. And things have become, the society and economy is such that it becomes so expensive that you have to take interest in. But remember, if you make sure that you stick to the halal guidelines and always try to find a halal sustenance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a way out for you. When it comes with the sins regarding about one's private parts, this is very common. Zina, look statistically, just forget about even Muslims. Even Muslims also themselves. But premarital relations, it's very common. 2 decades ago, it wasn't so common. Before, there was a whole, you date, and then after you get married, things happen. Before, none of that happens. Now it's just the opposite. If you're dating and nothing else happened before that, then you're actually looked at as you're an outcast. And our youth are involved in this. Our children are involved in this. Because we made it difficult for them to get married. With all these different criteria. Mawlana Shafi'itani, one of our greatest scholars, mentioned that if you look in our deen, in our sharia, anything which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laid out strict guidelines, people stood with those strict guidelines. Any place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave leeway and there's majal, and there's a huge domain, you had all these innovations that came about. And he gave the example, you just look at mahar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't specify a specific amount. Right? Some madahib, 10 dirham, some have given even, up to the spouses. But because there was so much leeway, what happens? People are asking for $100,000. You have to give this car, you have to give that. They're expecting things from their wife before they get married to her. And all these different innovations and sins which occur in the walim and all these different da'was which happen. Why? Is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left it open to people, and now people just messed it up. So make it easy for your children to get married and talk to them about these topics. That way they abstain from these sins. If they're not involved in clear-cut zina, they're involved in pornography. That eventually leads to that also. So these are just a very, very brief summary of the sins which are connected with each limbs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to safeguard all of our limbs. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi bil alameen. All the brothers are requested to please stand up and make room so that we can pray our sunnahs, inshallah. A few announcements, inshallah. Please pass the donation boxes from left to right and donate generously. Sadaqah wards off calamities and draws the mercy of Allah. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned charity giving during the day of Jumu'ah is greater in reward than any other day. The Darus Salam monthly seminar will be on Friday, January 13th after Isha. Topic, breaking the stigma, addressing addiction to the Muslim community. Speakers, Dr. Ahmed Rahimullah, Assistant Professor at Stanford University. This will occur after Isha, 7:45 p.m. is Isha Salah on January 13th on Friday. Please join our Tafhim Weekend Islamic Studies program to study traditional Islamic science on a part-time basis. The program is designed for adult learners who desire to formally study the Islamic sciences under the qualified instructors. The flexible schedule allows brothers and sisters to take classes on either Saturdays, Sundays, or both. Enrollment is open for spring 2023 semester. Classes will begin from Saturday, January 14th, offered on-site and online. For more details and enrollment, please visit masjidds.org/tafhim. Please save the date for 2023 benefit dinner with special guest Imam Zaid Shakir on January 28th, 5 p.m. at Shalimar Banquets. Ticket sales will be going on in the lobby. You can also purchase tickets at masjidds.org/benefit. Weekly programs which are continuing. Saturdays, Team Fajr will be resumed from January 14th, inshallah next Saturday. Bukhari Dars will be on Monday, January 19th. Tuesday's Tafsir program will resume on January 10th with Surah Mu'minun, inshallah. Our weekly Salawat gathering on Thursdays is continuing after Isha. There's a request for dua maghfirah for the aunt of Tahir Sayyid who passed away in India. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive her of all of her sins, grant her high standards of Jannah for those. And alhamdulillah, by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the used car lot area is ready to use for parking. We encourage all the musallis to come through North Avenue Road and park there.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، فيا أيها الناس وحدوا الله فإن التوحيد رأس الطاعات، واتقوا الله فإن التقوى ملاك الحسنات، وعليكم بالسنة فإن السنة تهدي إلى الطاعة، ومن أطاع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى. وإياكم والبدعة فإن البدعة تهدي إلى المعصية، ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل وغوى. وعليكم بالإحسان فإن الله يحب المحسنين، ولا تتبعوا الدنيا فتكونوا من الخاسرين. ألا وإن نفسا لن تموت حتى تستكمل رزقها، فاتقوا الله وأجملوا في الطلب وتوكلوا عليه، فإن الله يحب المتوكلين. ودعوه فإن ربكم مجيب الداعين، وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم، إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخلين. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم، ونفعنا وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات والذكر الحكيم، إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدًا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد بعدد من صلى وصام، اللهم صل على محمد بعدد من قعد وقام، وصل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر، وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر، وأصدقهم حياء عثمان، وأقضاهم علي، وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة، والحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة، وحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسوله. اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبا. الله في أصحابي لا تتخذوهم غرضا من بعدي، فمن أحبهم فبحبي أحبهم، ومن أبغضهم فببغضي أبغضهم، وخير أمتي قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم احفظ بلاد المسلمين. اللهم ألف بين قلوب المسلمين، وأصلح ذات بينهم، وانصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين، اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين، اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى، وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي، يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأعز وأجل وأتم وأهم وأكبر، والله يعلم ما تصنعون. أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله، أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
أقيموا صفوفكم واعتدلوا. Kindly please make sure that there are no gaps ahead of you. If there are, kindly please move forward. Fill up the main hall first and then move into the lobby, inshallah. Jazakumullahu Khairun. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.